Okay. This meeting is a regularly scheduled official action meeting when we will vote on matters which have been discussed in previous meetings. Tonight we will also present proclamations to outstanding students. This meeting is being videotaped for community cable channels. Individuals attending this meeting and intending to speak to the board should be aware that they are being videotaped. In order to meet the requirements of Pennsylvania Sunshine Law, it is necessary to record the names of all citizens who speak to the board during the meeting. To assure compliance with this requirement, it is essential that those planning to address the board come to the microphone and state their name and address. Members of the audience are asked to limit their questions and comments to no more than 3 minutes. This limit will permit time for all those who wish to speak to the board. Whenever members of the audience exceed this time limit, I may ask that individual to yield the microphone to the next speaker. And again, I plan to enforce that to include fairness to everyone who is here. Okay, in saying that, I'd like to move on to item number 1 under our action agenda. I'll turn it over to Dr. Bose. Oh, no, I don't need to. I can just ask for an approval of the minutes of the 705th meeting held on 10/19/95 as circulated. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Mr. Allen, second by Ms. Perkowski. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on. Recommend approval of the minutes of the 706th meeting held on 11/8/1995 as circulated. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Allen, second by Ms. Perkowski. Questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? One other thing I'd like to tell the audience is that we did have an executive session prior to this meeting, and it was to do with personnel matters. Now I have something else that I'd like to say. I haven't done this in the past, but I'd like to read something to the audience. And as president, I feel that's my prerogative. So here goes. This in regards to American Education Week. As I'm sure you're all aware, this is American Education Week, and I had the opportunity to attend a luncheon with Dr. Bose, with Mrs. Ellen Allen, and also Mr. Jeffrey Jordan. And it was a very enlightening luncheon. We have heard a student speak from, I believe it was the Upper Perk School District. And again, it was a very enlightening luncheon. But I'd like to go ahead and read some statements that I've prepared. Before we begin to award the student proclamations, I want to say a few things about American Education Week in the North Penn schools. Parents of North Penn students have been invited to visit their children's classrooms this week. Classroom visits and other special events are scheduled in individual schools throughout the country. As your school board president, I will say some things which I would not normally say in a public meeting. I'm proud to be able to say that I'm a graduate of North Penn High School, the class of 1977. I'm proud to say that my children attend North Penn schools. One is presently at Penfield and 2 are presently at Inglewood. And they're fine schools and there are fine teachers there. I had the experience of learning from many fine teachers during my 13 years in North Penn schools. And I might add that one of my children has had the same teacher that I did. And I think it's great. My children are having the same experience. Each year they meet some mighty fine teachers. This board member will not participate in any action which in my opinion are destructive to the North Penn schools. I may not always agree with the official position of the teachers union or the recommendations of district administrators, but I am committed to listen, to consider all sides of the question, and to vote my conscience as I work to represent community beliefs and philosophy. During my time on this board, I will be asking to hear more positive school reports during our board meetings. I want to hear more about our successes and our accomplishments. Tonight we're going to hear a lot of them. When people in the community watch our board meetings on the community cable channels, they should hear a discussion of educational issues and see a clear focus on educational decisions. I want to balance our need to question financial commitments with solid factual reporting about the accomplishments of our students. This school board and this community must climb out of the ugly mess of the past 6 months. We must all work together to find some new common ground that will help us to restore the trust of our residents and neighbors, whether they have children in public school or not. I did not seek election to this school board to damage the school district. That is not why board members seek election. Each board member has something to offer. We may not always agree, like I said earlier, but every person on this board for sure has input. Each board member comes to this table with a personal agenda. Our work here is to blend those agendas into a common agenda for the good of the school district. If we want this country to continue to be strong, and if we want our economy to be solid and expanding, and if we care about our children, then we must care about our public schools. There's no alternative. Public schools are a key to our nation's future. It seems to me that American Education Week is a good time for the board president to say some things that need to be said. Thank you for listening. Now we should present proclamations to our students, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Ken Weir.
Members of our boys varsity water polo team have arrived and they're looking smart. Coach is leading their parade. We'll be inviting the girls water polo team to be with us during December. I don't want you to think that the young ladies are being slighted. We felt that we couldn't do justice to all in one meeting, and we will have the female team next month. Bill Bartle is the coach, and he's going to tell us just a little bit about the season and introduce each of the students. I think if your students would come and stand behind us, they would make quite a fine showing, and I will read the proclamation once rather than many times.
Okay, first of all, these boys this year placed first in the Southern Division of the Pennsylvania State Water Polo League, and they also were state runner-ups last weekend at Wilson High School, and that's quite an accomplishment.
Coach, before you introduce them, may I read the proclamation once? Whereas many North Penn School District students individually and collectively perform distinguished service to their school in many activities, and whereas the reputation and image of the North Penn School District is built and enhanced by the performance of its faculty and students, and whereas the accomplishments of individual students in academic, artistic, athletic, leadership, literary, and musical endeavors bring positive community interest in school programs, and whereas the future of any community rests in the hands of its responsible youth. And then the student is named and the accomplishment is explained, as it is our practice in all of these. So Coach Bartle, if you'll introduce these young men, please.
Sure. I'd like to start with Jason Geddes. Jason, walk
We'll
around.
go down the line right here.
This way, Jason, walk towards me.
They have to come to you. Jason will come to you. Okay, that's fine.
You can probably just head over that way. That's good.
Next is Bill Baldwin. Ryan McGrath.
What is the name? Ryan McGrath.
Mike McPeak.
Peak. Got it.
Eric Umlauf. Gabe Turzo.
That's a tough game.
Silvo Zabo. Kevin Rader. Steve Johnston. I'd like to also say that Steve was named to first team All-State this year in water polo.
Steve.
Jeff Fakish. Jeff also was named to first team this year in water polo. Chris Dursek. Phil Valente. Ago Zabo. Ago received All-State Honorable Mention. Jamie Knight. Jason Craig. Jason was named to second team All-State this year. And Greg Adams. And Greg was named to third team All-State this year. I'd also like to thank the board for their support of the water polo program. Thank you.
Mr. Barr, come up front, we have an award for you. It's Award of Merit for Outstanding Service to the North Penn School District to Mr. William Bartle.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Sure.
I would like to also add my congratulations. I have done it, but I'd like to do it as Director of Secondary Ed. And I'd also like to say to you that these young men look quite a bit different than they do in the pool. But more importantly, I think that an organization depicts the philosophy and the attitude of the leader. And the way they look tonight is the philosophy and the attitude of their leader. And I think that we all should be incredibly happy that we were able to somehow get Mr. Bartle away from Reading to come home. I think I am so proud of the fact that I had something to do with that. And I'd simply like to say to him that this is only the second season that we've been an official team. And we're looking to see these young men back as state champions in swimming.
Thank you.
No, excuse me. One, I'm going to agree because I was sitting here thinking, well, this team's been a winner from the very beginning. I mean, they just took off flying through the water and have been a wonderful addition to our sports program. Brought a lot of accolades.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
Okay, guys.
In addition to the boys water polo team, we've invited Coach Robert Hurst to come and introduce two members of the girls tennis team. So when these young men exit, we'll invite Coach Hurst to introduce the two young ladies that he will be telling us about. Nobody has it.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting myself and my two young ladies. Kathy and Carrie, if you would come up. Kathy and Carrie are here for individual recognition, but a word or two about the team. Our girls tennis team finished with a 15-win, 3-loss record this season. They were second in the Suburban 1 Patriot Division and ranked 5th in District 1 overall. Kathy and Carrie play number 1 and number 2 singles for us respectively, and much of our success this season was due in large part to how well skilled they are and the tremendous leadership they showed to our younger players. In the postseason tournaments, Kathy and Carrie played doubles together, and they were the Patriot Division doubles champions. They finished second in District 1 doubles tournament, and recently they participated in the state championships at Hershey, where they finished ninth. And I'd like to thank them for a tremendous season, excellent careers. They're both seniors leaving us. And I'd also like to thank the school board for all the support you give to our athletic programs.
And this for Kathy.
Kathy? Congratulations. Again, let's give them a round of applause. I'd like to read an award of merit to Mr. Robert Hurst for outstanding service to the North Penn School District. Thank you very much. Your support
Is John King with us tonight?
Yes.
Thank you. Would you come to the podium, please, Mr. King? We've invited John King to come and tell us about two members of the golf team. John King is the coach of our North Penn High School golf team. John?
Thank you. We had a very good season, I'd say. We had an 8-4 record in the league. We had a team championship of 6-man team competing up in northern Pennsylvania against New York State and Pennsylvania State schools. And we won it. And we had the young man who won the low medal, who was also going to have an award tonight. He not only won the medal in that tournament, he went on to states and was in the middle of the pack at states. However, he was 9th at suburbans and number 5 player at districts, with quite a reputation this year. That was Anthony Tacanelli. We had another, don't know if she's here, young lady who came in from Indiana and went on to states and won 12th place for all the girls in the state of Pennsylvania, which is one of the, she's the second girl to have won or to have gone to states. There was one other girl in 1988. Anthony is the first boy to go to states in golf for the North Penn High School. I think it's quite a doing for him to do that. Anthony Tacanelli.
Thank you. Is he present?
Now, I think Anthony just came off the course. He's practicing all the time, didn't you?
Is Amy here tonight?
Congratulations.
Is Amy Garrett here?
Amy, I don't believe is here tonight.
Thank you. We'll make sure she gets
All
this
right,
tomorrow.
fine.
Thank you.
Mrs. Trump?
We have an award of merit for outstanding service to the North Penn School District to Mr. John King. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Anthony, by the way, is a 10th grader. You're going to see him
All
in a
right.
couple more years.
I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank coaches King and Hurst for continuing to do an outstanding job with our young people. Thank you, Coach.
Mr. President, if I may, we have some board members who are attending their last official board meeting tonight. Pending some need for an emergency meeting, which we certainly hope we would not have any need for, this would be the last meeting, and we should recognize the service that they have given to the school district. I would like to first, on behalf of the administration, this Board of School Directors, as the secretary to the board, the students and the staff of this school district, recognize the many contributions of Terry Perkowski. Secondly, I would like to recognize the efforts of Mrs. Carmen Layton. Mr. Ralph Redcamp was unable to be here tonight. He called late this afternoon to say he had some unusual emergency work circumstances tonight. He regretted that he couldn't be with us for this, his last official meeting. And Bill Roman served us in our hour of need. Now, some folks have to work 4 years to get this plaque. So you've shown an interest in our efforts for a long time, and as you and I have said on other occasions, we expect you to continue to be interested. So I'm sure you will put in your 4 years plus. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're ready to move on to item number 3, committee reports. Item 3A is facilities, buildings, and grounds. Mr. Bill Allen.
No report.
Any questions or comments of Bill? Okay, let's move on to item 3B, community services and policy. Carmen Leahy.
No report.
Questions or comments for Carmen? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 3C, elementary education. Teresa Pukowski.
No report that I remember. Give the award back.
Any comments or questions for Terry? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 3D, secondary education. Ralph Reckamp. Ralph's not here. I need to go to the front page to check the alternate, would be Carmen Leahy. Carmen, do you have any comments?
About secondary education?
Please don't ask me.
No report.
No report, Tom.
Okay, we'll move on to item 3E, special education and student services. Terry Pukowski.
No report. With confidence.
Comments or questions? Okay, we'll move on to item 3F, support services. Donna Mingo.
No report, Mr. President.
Comments or questions of Donna? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 3G, finance. Vicki Sherrill.
No report.
Comments or questions for Vicki?
Are we sure the administration was in this week?
Oh, I'm sure.
I saw you at 8 o'clock at night.
Okay, moving on to item 3H, personnel. David Whites.
No report.
Comments or questions for David? Hearing none, we'll move on to legislative. Item J, Carmen Leahy.
Very long report. Okay. It's kind of the holiday season for the legislators, so they're trying to get everything done before they leave, which is, I think, like September 3rd, or December 3rd, rather. And there's quite a few bills out there, none of them which are moving, and one of them which is very important and may be moving very fast. The prevailing wage bill is not moving at all. However, Governor Ridge is actually looking at the letter of the law in prevailing wage and is going to be setting a county-wide prevailing wage, as opposed to now where it's arbitrary and people decide what they want to do. So that's at least one good thing. The binding arbitration bill that passed the House will probably never pass the Senate, so that's pretty much dead. And once again, tax reform is showing up, and there's about 700 different flavors of it, so that won't be moving. The big bill that is coming out is the Keystone Initiative for a Difference in Our School that has been put out by Governor Ridge. And in it, there are several items. There is a waiver for mandate, which allows boards to be able to petition the Board of Education for waivers if they can show what that they provide the same capability. There's a sabbatical reform, which would eliminate sabbaticals. There's economic furlough, which allows for a district who loses 5% of their actual revenue to furlough employees. There's renewal of certificate, which has to do with the teacher certificate. There's a tenure reform, which puts an extra year onto the qualification for tenure. There are charter schools, which has now been revised so that it is the school board who decides on the charter schools, and there is no provision to go to the Board of Education and try to get it through that. There's an optional outcome-based education, which allows school districts to opt out of outcome-based education. There's a public-to-public school choice, which would allow residents to attend any school that they choose within their boundaries and outside of their boundaries, which would mean that if a student in North Penn is going to Englewood and they want to go to York Avenue, that would give them the choice to do that. If a student in North Penn wants to go to Wissahickon, they would have that ability. And with that comes all the money that goes with it, and there's quite a long part of that. There's a distance learning task force, which is pretty much in view of what we were talking about earlier, which is technology and allowing children who are away from school districts to be able to link things and learn things and be able to work at home. And that is an initiative that has a $1 million grant for support of distant learning programs. And then the last one is the voucher, which Governor Ridge had tried to pass previously. The reason why I say this bill is going to go very fast, Governor Ridge is looking to see how many votes he has. If he thinks he has the number of votes, this bill will come up next week. And that's the end of my report.
Okay, Carmen, Tom's preoccupied. Regarding the sabbaticals, my understanding is it will remove mandatory sabbaticals, but however, it's open for negotiations and it's still there. It's not prohibiting, but rather it's not mandating any longer.
No, basically, it's removing sabbaticals because there's very few school districts, at least in Montgomery County, that will even allow it to be part of the collective bargaining. That's the general opinion of all the people that were at the state legislation meeting last night.
Yeah.
It's in a number of contracts right now.
Correct,
So
but once the contracts come up, they do not have to be bound.
No, but I'm saying
Yeah,
it's
put 'em in.
voluntary. It's left in the hands of negotiation.
The way it reads very simply is that the school board has to agree to negotiate it.
Right. So whatever's in the collective bargaining has to stay in the collective bargaining agreement, in the contracts, but once they come up again, they do not have to be part of the collective bargaining.
They didn't have to be in the contract to begin with, is my
True.
point. So if
True.
they got in there once,
Right, but they were
Boards put it
mandatory,
in
and now
again.
they're not mandatory, and pretty much part of this bill is to eliminate sabbaticals altogether. That's the purpose of it.
Well, become a negotiating issue, I suppose. It's not prohibited, they're not banned, but the other aspect of charter schools, my understanding was in the provision for the charter schools that if those petitioning their board of directors is denied a charter school, they can still, in fact, appeal to the Secretary of Education for an override of approval.
The
Which-
appeal process is extremely lengthy and it's very rare. Whereas the original charter school bill was that they could circumvent the school board totally and go to the Board of Education, and within a certain amount of time, they can get approved. This puts all the approval process at the school board level and very little at the appeals level for the
But it
Board of
hasn't changed from the
Education.
form. I received that paper, and as I read it, was slightly different, and I wondered if something came down from Harrisburg that amended what was in print.
What you've got is this, what
And then
is
hasn't been
actually
amended,
is
okay.
the actual bills, which goes into more detail of what exactly is
Okay,
covered.
but the form, the Kids to initiative that we've received hasn't been amended in any way since that was printed?
Not yet.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Carmen.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments from Carmen? Thank you for the detailed report.
You're welcome. It's the only one tonight, so. Yeah, here you go.
Okay, we'll move on to item 3K, North Monco Technical Career Center. I believe Bill or Donna, maybe you can comment?
No report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, we'll move on to item 3L, Merck Science Partnership. David White.
No report?
Questions or comments? Move on to item M, other assignments?
Can I make an addendum?
Sure.
Back to elementary ed.
Sure.
We have a new acting director of elementary ed, Tom Sugar. End of report.
Thank you, Terry. We have Dr. Tom Sugar and Dr. Juan Bond. Dr. Bond is our acting director of secondary ed, and Dr. Tom Sugar is our acting director of elementary ed. Thank you for pointing that out, Terry. Welcome to the team, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to do that next. Any other thing on other assignments? Okay, we need to take a short recess. I'll turn it over to David for 1 minute.
There's some information on bids that is not in our agendas tonight and not with the audience. We need 5 minutes to collect that information so that we have the precise numbers on them before we vote on it.
And distribute to them.
And distribute it to the audience also. So we need a 5-minute recess for that review.
Okay, so we're gonna just stay in here.
Staying right here.
And ask that everyone would stay here. If you want the information, Ken will take care of copying it and distributing it to you.
Honey, I'll be with you. I'll be with you. Be 1 minute. Just gotta make photocopies.
Right.
Take 7
Yeah.
days.
The sheets that you've received will come up later this evening under item 5G. And at that time, I believe David White will explain some of the sheets, and when we get to that, we'll turn it over to David. Okay, I believe now it's this time we're under item 3M. I'm sorry, we're finished item 3M. We will now move on to item 4, to the audience of citizens. Mr. Bacido.
I don't know if this is the right time, but I'll just start it and you let me know. Most of the parents all of the parents I've talked to has claimed that the best thing, the most they wanted out of the school system was for their children to become good readers. If a pupil, just to give you an idea, if a pupil cannot read, that child would not be able to learn English, math, or the sciences. If a child reads poorly, that child will learn the above subjects poorly. We know that parents can and should be the first instructor of a child. In many cases, parents can be easily instructed how to teach their 3- and 4-year-old preschoolers how to read just by participating in a group situation in approximately 1.5 hours. Just an idea, in 1992, I was informed on more than one occasion that the North Penn School District kindergarten pupils must identify 75% of the upper and lowercase characters in isolation in order to pass to first grade. Now, there's a lot more than that to it, but this is the most important part. What happens is that, let's see, there is no effort made to have the pupils pronounce the actual sounds that go with each of the alphabetic characters. And this is one area that is extremely important, and I won't go into detail at this time, but that's one of the bad things that are happening in the school system. You got to remember that the 26 alphabetic characters stand for 44 distinctive sounds. Now, if these children would just work with this thing, when they get about 4th or 5th grade, they can read anything in a public library. Just with that, and that's not happening right now with the kids here. By the 2nd or 3rd grade, these otherwise normal pupils who have been are placed in special ed programs for the remainder of their school years, and that's what happens with a lot of them. And they're very normal kids, and they shouldn't be in there to begin with. This is in spite of the fact that most children who enter kindergarten are capable of using between 3,000 and 12,000 words in their everyday conversation. They can actually, you'd be surprised, I do a lot of work with kindergarten kids, and they really amaze me at what they can do. But I know some of those kids are going to go to special ed. It's a shame.
Mr. Bacido, could you conclude?
Can I just, okay. I am a
In fairness to everyone, your 3 minutes is just about up, so
Okay.
please conclude.
Okay, that's what I want to do. I am a retired public school teacher possessing all the necessary degrees. I am requesting or asking the school board if they would sponsor a demonstration parental training program to teach their preschool children how to read before the children enter the public schools. I wouldn't charge anything. I'd like to have it done at no cost to the school board or the parents.
Thank you. Mr. Bacido, could you give your name and address?
I'm sorry. My name is John Bacido. I live at 2005 Bustard Road in Tomenson.
Thank you. I'd ask Dr. Sugar that you could get back to Mr. Bacido. Okay? Sir? Mr. Robinson?
Thank you. Gary Robinson, Hatfield Township. During the past year, a number of North Penn school officials arrogantly sat here boasting that the district is audited 2 times a year, stating in essence that no financial irregularities had been found over a period of years. Yet, November 1st in the North Penn Reporter, November 2nd in the Philadelphia Inquirer, November 3rd again in the Reporter. Carry articles, news stories concerning financial irregularities, dealing with the 1991 refinancing. It was reported savings as $115,000 in the Reporter story, $105,000 in the Inquirer. Still differing amounts, even with the news reporters. In one of the stories, in the Reporter, it refers to that the oversight was a mistake public financial management admitted making to school officials, though not in writing. To recap, in the Inquirer refers to the fact that the documents retrieved from storage by Dennis Kelly indicate that North Penn made $60,000 from the lower interest rates. The other $45,000 was made up largely by the consultants who cut their fees. Apparently, according to these stories as they go on, that only a couple school officials involved in the settlement were aware that the figures that were quoted to the public were not the same figures as the actual financial transactions. It is also strange that these stories only began to develop after myself and Mr. DeFelice filed a petition in Montgomery County Court October 17th, demanding our right under Pennsylvania law, the right to know law, access to financial records. The stories also relate to the fact that some of these financial records were provided to Gregory Anderson, a candidate for his school board in this past election. It appears that these records are still not made available to Mr. DeFelice, myself, or others. What does this mean? The public financial records are only going to be selectively made available to certain individuals? I think perhaps what goes on in this district, that are there some political big shots with their hand in the till where they don't belong?
Mr. Robinson, could you conclude
Yes.
your statement?
And was that the motivation for the vile campaigning that went on? I hope that this board will direct their subordinate officials to open these financial records. Thank you.
Mr. Robinson. In the back, Mr. Anderson. And I believe next there was a hand over on that side and then a hand
Tom,
in the center.
can I speak for a minute? On behalf of Dennis and Ms.
Dennis, do it.
No,
Let's wait till after everybody's finished. Let's give them all a chance. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. Greg Anderson, Abbey Lane, Montgomery Township. Got a cold. I hadn't planned on speaking tonight, but I can't let that last set of remarks go unchallenged. I began in July looking into this information, and it was through my assistance that Mr. Kelly was able to identify what records had been missing. That goes back to August, sir. That does not go back to the time of your petition. And as of Rosh Hashanah, which was September 27th, I believe, this information was well known and researched, and it was brought to Mr. Bose's attention, or Dr. Bose's attention. Dr. Bose immediately saw the necessity of getting further details and sent Mr. Kelly promptly to Harrisburg at the earliest convenience of our financial advisors to seek their cooperation. They have not cooperated, which is one of the reasons why this matter is still under investigation, but I have every reason to believe that the school board and the school district are pursuing this matter with the utmost diligence, and that everybody, regardless of where they stood in the election, feels strongly that the accountability for these bonds is necessary and would have pursued a similar agenda. So I think your concerns are about to be addressed, sir, and to suggest that one person has special access to them is ridiculous. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Yes, ma'am.
I'll change the subject. My name is Kathy Hungate. I live at 1925 Rampart Lane, Lansdale. 14 months ago, when my second daughter was in 8th grade at Penfield, I discovered that the honors program had been eliminated from the course of study. Not a single parent, and surprise, not a single board member was aware of this change. I came before you then and learned that you had indeed signed off on the elimination of the 8th grade honors curriculum, but that you had each done it unknowingly. You were as surprised and disturbed as I and a growing number of parents was. The administration had simply laid before you a course of study in which the honors classes had been deleted and made no mention of the fact. For 6 weeks, I worked with parents to have this decision reversed. When the administration suggested that reinstating the honors program would destroy the new teaming concept in 7th and 8th grade, we offered a workable alternative. The administration laid this issue to rest by publicly changing the focus of our debate. By taking the growing public spotlight off the real issue, which was the elimination of the 8th grade honors program, and shifting that spotlight to a new issue, the destruction of the teaming concept, the administration was able to gather teacher support and board support, and the debate ended. But it didn't end. Our achieving students in 8th grade remained grouped with and underachieving students. Curriculum remained diluted, and discipline problems ran rampant. This year, those same students are struggling in 9th grade honors in large part because of the lack of academic rigor and preparation that they experienced last year in 8th grade. The elimination of 8th grade honors occurred at the same time the 8th grade moved from 1 building to 2. It follows then that when 9th grade moves from its present building to 3 buildings, and I think that that's the plan, and 8th grade moves to yet a 3rd building, that maybe 9th grade honors is also at risk. Especially in light of the fact that I received a survey from the 8th and 9th grade principals last week. In this carefully and ambiguously worded document, only the concept of teaming is addressed. There is little room for dissension and no room for comment. The survey will generate a positive response from many parents, but my dissatisfaction last year was not with my child's teachers, but with the less than challenging curriculum that those teachers were obligated to teach. For the record, they too thought the curriculum did not meet the needs of the high-achieving honors students, but they did what they were told to do. I now question whether this survey is the very instrument that will begin the elimination of the honors program in 9th grade and continue to rationalize the lack of honors in 8th grade.
Mrs. Hungate, could you conclude?
I would just ask you to be aware of the focus of the debate. Soon you will be approving changes for the next year. Please pay careful attention to what is and what is not there.
Thank you,
Thank
Mrs.
you.
Hungate. Okay, ma'am in the center.
Good evening. I'm Linda Abram from Upper Gwynedd. I was pleased, President Clemens, to hear you speak earlier about the need for more positive school reports at our school board meetings. And I was also pleased with your comment to the effect that public schools are the key to our future. I would like to share 2 real quick stories with you tonight on what I feel are positive stories about our public education system. First of all, we have to be very proud of American Education Week here in North Penn. Our schools are open for community and parents to come. We've had many parents, I can speak personally about my school at Gwynnor, come in. We've offered childcare so that those parents can go into the classroom without hassling a younger child, and they've had opportunities to interact with others, supervised, so that that parent can spend quality time seeing the kinds of things that are going on in our classrooms. I myself have had a wonderful experience seeing all different kinds of things in our school, and I continue to be pleased and thrilled with the kind of direction that we have in our classrooms. Something on a more serious note occurred, and as many of you know, a parent in our building has passed away this past week, and that was Larry Rivenbark. And over the past year, Rosemaria, who is his wife, has spent a great deal of time in our building with the support of our staff and our parents, has literally gotten through this year of tremendous stress and difficulty. And she came to our home and school meeting the other night and touched our hearts greatly. Her comment was that for all the money she has spent on psychiatrists, she never received greater support and direction than what came from the staff, the principals, and our counselors at Gwynnor. Our parents provided her with meals, with paper products, with financial support if she was willing to take it. We were able to problem solve different logistical things for her as she needed to get to various rehabilitation centers and hospitals. during Larry's unfortunate disabling time. I just was very moved by the fact that here is a situation well beyond what goes on in our classroom environment. This was a parent in tremendous need whose children received a great deal of support and who she herself received support from our faculty and staff, and I wanted to share that with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sabers. Very nice. Mr. Taylor.
I'm Bill Taylor from Lansdale, and I want to reiterate Ms. Hungate's comments. I did that instrument as best my daughter and I could do. It was not at all clear what it was all about. It asked yes or no questions for things that we hadn't encountered, as far as I know. I made a comment on the back, which I thought was going to be enough, and I had not thought that there might be some portent in that for next year, which is bad, but it was very alarming when you get right down to it. My first reaction with a teacher is that if I don't understand them, it's my problem. But I did not understand that. We did what we could, but it's not at all clear what it was for, and it's not at all clear what they thought they were relating to. And I do remember last year struggling through this, trying to figure out what was going on in 8th grade, in Penfield at least, under the heading of honors. It was very difficult to tell what anybody was talking about. And I don't think I did.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Judy, would you like to respond?
Yes, I would.
I think in fairness to Judy.
If you recall, in May of last year, we went into budget deliberations and we talked about curriculum. At that time, the question of teaming came up. Dr. Fike had mentioned to the board that before a decision could be made, we really needed to look at it critically. And we would be soliciting parent input. We would be looking at the finances, what it costs to do teaming as opposed to traditional rostering. And also, we would look at some hard data, the academic impact teaming has had, whether or not it's had an academic impact. This survey was merely informational, just to find out how parents felt, if they understood teaming. I heard Mrs. Hungate's comments about the academic levels, and question 2 states, my child's course levels have met his or her academic needs. That was particularly designed to get at the honors question. So we do recognize that that was a concern, and we want to see how parents feel, whether or not teaming is meeting those needs. That was the intent of the survey. The survey was not like the guidance survey or several other surveys where you were looking at a statistical analysis. We wanted to get parents' impressions, and that was the main focus of the survey. We tried to make it as clear and concise as possible. We did not go into the whole concept of teaming because at each individual school there were seminars and those things held for parents. What we really needed to know is whether or not parents do understand what is happening. So that was the reality of what this survey was meant to do, nothing more.
Thank you, Judy. Any other comments from the audience? Okay, gentleman in the back, then we'll come to the lady at the front.
Yes, sir. My name is Chris Vallis. I'm from Lansdale. The school board voted in September to establish a policy on what constitutes hate speech for purposes of enforcing such policy. In the last board meeting, a draft of such policy was presented to the board for consideration. The board voted to send it back to committee for further review. As indicated in the last meeting by the legal representative from Mr. Pottish's office, Mr. Bruce, the board has limitations. It cannot enforce such policy on its fellow board members. Enforcement can only be rendered by the community through the voting booth. Upon research, there are many federal and state laws already existing with respect to what an individual can and cannot say in complying with the First Amendment governing freedom of speech. Many precedents have already been established through state, federal, and Supreme Court rulings on this subject. To have our school board again review this subject, I feel is beyond the scope and purview of their duties. In addition, for the school board to continue to pursue its decision to establish a hate speech policy is causing an unnecessary disquietness and disruptiveness in the community and between board members. It detracts from the true purpose and goals of the school board to help establish, oversee, and develop the best educational product for the tax dollars spent. For these reasons, I ask that you make a motion that this school board today, in its last meeting, reconsider its decision to establish a hate speech policy for purposes of overriding this past decision, to deem it unnecessary for the reasons outlined, to permit the new school board voted in to begin its tenure with a clean bill of health. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Sir, could you give us your last name again?
Vallis.
Could you, Vallis?
Yes, just like Dallas, Texas with a V.
Thank you, sir. Okay, ma'am in the front.
Anita Shermer from Hatfield Township. If any of you would like to know where the Freedom to Learn Network paper and this article came from, I thought since, unfortunately, it seemed to include all of you by saying school boards across the country, etc., I thought it only fair that you all have one. I agree with Chris that the time for these policies, etc., I think there should just be a mutual contract of mutual respect for each other as human beings, and this divisiveness to stop. I view this Freedom to Learn Network thing that's been flying around that was shoved in my hand at a public demonstration to be divisive, and I would hope that everyone in this room would separate themselves from it. Its mask says something it is not. I am a product of the North Penn School District. I am a 1959 graduate of North Penn High School. Thank God. It was a good school. Thank you, Mr. Gerald Kriebel, who passed away. Thank you, Mr. John Vinsky, Mildred Senator, Mr. Vizard, Mr. Kulik, Dolly Kuykendall, Edward Clavan, Coach Crawford, Coach Chubb, Coach Gulick, Bessie Ott, and all the other ones who only old North Penners know. I do love my school, but I don't want our children deceived into following madness. And I hope this all stops. And as a citizen, I think it stands to reason to see that the North Penn Coalition for Tolerance meets at exactly the same time as this school board. Therefore, I would say they negate themselves as being concerned citizens of our children and our school board, since they choose to meet in opposing time. Thank you. Amen.
Thank you, Ann. Gentleman in the front. Mr. Hammond.
Good evening. I'm Chuck Hammond from Montgomery Township. I'm not a graduate of North Penn High School, unfortunately. I would like to say one thing this evening and follow up on Mr. Weir left off. I'd like to thank Terry for 4 years. I think she might have enjoyed the next 4 more than she did this 4, but I appreciate what she's done for this community. I'd like to thank Ralph for putting a couple of extra dollars in my pocket for his vote last year or earlier this year. And Carmen, you and I have never seen eye to eye, but I'd like to thank you also for your community service, and I wish all 3 of you well in your future endeavors in the community. Thank you to the 3 of you.
Thank you, Chuck. Any other questions or comments, ma'am? Oh, okay. Well, let's find out. Anyone else for the first time? Okay, Mrs. Hungate.
I guess your response triggered some questions in my mind, and I wondered if this is a time to address them.
As long as we keep it to 3 minutes or less.
No problem. I have 3 questions. I'm wondering if one possible outcome of the survey is teaming in 9th grade for next year.
Mrs. Hungate, I really don't have any possible outcomes. We're gathering data to look at it right now. Okay. There's been nothing decided at all.
Okay, then I would lay before the board to consider that as one possible outcome of the survey. And also I would wonder if 9th grade honors curriculum is still sacred territory. Is that still going to be in place next year? And also, is there a possibility that
I believe Dr. Bond could address that.
Yeah, I think it would be fair to say that we're going to take a look at any number of possibilities, and we will be reporting on those possibilities. And I would be happy to meet with you personally to take those suggestions that you have, and those concerns that you and whomever else has. I would also like to say that I think it would be unfair to suggest that the honors question has been removed from the table, because in fact it has not. There has been nothing removed from the table. I am working with Mrs. Clark to get myself up to speed on that topic, and we all will be involved, and we will all have a report, and every possibility will be taken a look at.
Will you be revisiting 8th grade honors?
We will be revisiting all of them. All those questions that you have, and I'd be happy to sit with you to talk about that.
Dr. Bond, for the benefit of the audience and for Mrs. Hungate, shouldn't we point to the next item on the agenda where it says that we're approving the program of studies for the North Penn High School? In fact, it's 9 through 12, and that may or may not be approved tonight. It's recommended for approval tonight. And so we'll know before we leave tonight about 9 through 12.
That's comforting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else from the audience? I'd like to go back to Mrs. Scher on, Vicki, you wanted to speak up, and I held you back a little bit.
Well,
in all fairness to you, I feel that you should have
Dennis
the
was
floor.
feeling a little slighted. He wasn't allowed to defend himself, but Judy was, so we're looking at you.
Sorry about that, Dennis. Here's the deal.
No, Mr. Chair, honestly,
But
I mean,
that's okay.
What I wanted to say was, I couldn't comment on Mr. Robinson's talk since the matter's in litigation.
Right.
That's
I wanted
exactly, and that's, I was discussing that with Bud up front.
No.
Should we be discussing this at all? And that's why I held it off.
Nothing specific, but I would say that Dennis and I too also had begun in June. We have been pursuing information from both PFM, Core States, which is the disbursement of funds, and other agencies that have been involved in the past bond issuance costs. Unfortunately, because the money is dispersed directly from the bond money and spreads out from there as far as the issuance costs are concerned, we have not had records in this district, even though it was our dollars being spent. And Dennis and I have been working towards getting that documentation in-house and seeing that that is maintained on a regular basis, and anytime any agency on our behalf disperses money that actually belongs to the taxpayers of this district, proof of that disbursement is forwarded on to us so that we have that provided. And the other issues revolving around this all came into play in a review of the bond accounts from the past that, as you know, has been pursued for quite a long time. I won't get into Mr. Robinson's particular complaint for that, but I have to say to Dennis's credit, he's been doing the best he can to retrieve this information. He's been at the mercy of the agencies that have control of it, and if need be, we will pursue formal action to obtain it. And that may be in my December report, which I had mentioned last month.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Scher. Okay, that concludes item number 4. Now we will move on to item number 5, the superintendent's report. I'll turn it over to Dr. Bowes.
Thank you, Mr. President, and members of the board. Somebody's already upstaged me. I wanted to welcome Dr. Sugar and Dr. Bond. That's all right, Terry. It's a privilege as somebody who's attending our last meeting. So let me welcome Tom and Juan to their new roles, and appreciate the Board of Education for taking action to appoint them and giving us a complete staff for planning purposes. And now let me begin with the recommendations for your consideration by introducing Dr. Bond again, who's going to make a report to you that precedes our recommendation to approve the 9 through 12 course of studies for planning next year, and to show you the changes that are made, those that are substantial and those that are rather incidental. Dr. Bond, if you would, please.
Thank you, Dr. Bowes. First, I'd like to acknowledge that the changes that we're asking for next year reflect changes that affect grades 10, 11, and 12, that the 9th grade program of studies stays as is for next year. The changes that we're recommending, as you've read, primarily deal with initiatives relative to tech prep. We've raised our expectations, and we're adding technology and science to those courses, which is depicted in most of those changes. The other significant change has to do with social studies, and we're simply asking to add more social studies in a couple of areas, and only to change one level from 4.0 to 5.0, that being journalism, and to put, we have a lot of interest now from many of our tech prep students based on our interdisc program of biology, English, and social studies that have shown an interest in genetics, and we'd like to offer that again. And I simply like to reiterate what I said in our memo, and that is that none of the courses that we're asking for here will cause any increase in staffing, that any increase in staffing will be due solely to additional enrollment that we experience at the high school. And the informational items have to do with name changes, and most of those name changes, again, have to do with the fact that we're adding more sophisticated software or technology and science to those courses. That's my report.
Thank you, Dr. Vaughn, and certainly any questions that you might have could be directed to Dr. Vaughn. It's a simple issue. You have a document that you're considering approving tonight, which identifies the changes. They're not that great, as you can see for yourselves. And if approved, they modify the existing course of studies only to the extent that paper represents them. So it is recommended that you approve the change. That's the initial activity leading to the students and parents making course selections, the staffing, and the scheduling commencing for the school year 96-97.
Okay, is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Mingle, second by Ms. Perkowski. Okay, we open it up for questions. Questions on this side? Mr. Allen.
Yes, there seems to be some misconceptions in the community about the tech prep program. One of them seems to be that we're almost going to vote tech in the high school. And I know it's a misconception, and what I would, if you could you please explain how the tech prep, what it's doing to what we're asking of the students, the demands we're putting on the students, and how we are, what I would say, increasing or toughening the curriculum that we're giving these students, and not watering it down. Would you
in a nutshell,
explain that a little better than I can, please?
I will do that, and you should also know that we're looking to make a full presentation on tech prep in January. So I'll give a slimmed down version of tech prep tonight. Tech prep, the emphasis of tech prep is on school to work. The objective is to get our youngsters more prepared for the world of work. Tech prep is for 4.0 students, 5.0 students, 6.0 students. We have programs that are related to careers for 5.0 students and 4.0 students. 50% of the students at North Penn High School involved in the Tech Prep School to Work initiative attend the Technical Career Center. 50% of those students do not. We have said that we're not going to teach general education. We're going to teach math and we're going to teach science, but we're going to teach the math and science that the world of work says these youngsters need to learn. So we don't have basics and we don't have general. These applied courses are published by folks in Waco, Texas, and the applied courses deal directly with careers and school to work, the work issues. We have talked to people in business and industry, and we've asked them what it is we need to teach our youngsters, and that's in fact what we're doing. The vocational piece is related to those 50% of the youngsters who go to the Technical Career Center, or the youngsters who take a vocational course, Principles of Technology. Principles of Technology at our place is taught by the Tech Ed department, but Principles of Technology is recognized as a physics course as well. It's a physics course for those youngsters who are interested in technologies. We've added computers, we've added math. We're asking these youngsters to complete math courses that are different than they've ever experienced. We've had some difficulty with that. We've had some youngsters struggling with that, and we've provided extra help for these youngsters. We've not said to these youngsters, well, if you don't get it, it's okay. We've said, you have to get it. You have to get it, and you can get it. The other thing is that there's a much more of a positive approach to this, and it's an applied approach. These youngsters are not simply told to look in the book at page 56 and do problems 1 through 10. They're saying do problems 6, 7, and 9 and relate it to something that has to do with real life. And for a lot of these youngsters, that real life has to do with where they work after school. We have taken what these youngsters are doing in terms of TV and work, and we're trying to teach them through that medium. We've decided that if these youngsters are going to work, let's make it work as an educational tool. We have youngsters working at the mall, and some of their math problems are dealing with the discounts that are having at the store where they work. I mean, there's a lot of things, and that's the application piece, and that's what Tech Prep is. Anyone who thinks that Tech Prep is a watered-down version of something should come over and visit it. And these youngsters will tell you when they come here in January, and their parents will tell you the difference in terms of what these youngsters have learned now and what they've learned several years ago. And the key point here is that we're no longer teaching these youngsters, we're expecting these youngsters to learn. Teaching isn't the most important part in this program. Learning is. And that's what we're about in Tech Prep and School of Work.
Any more questions from this side?
Dr. Vaughn, I'm going to ask you a question that I've been asked before and have never really obtained the answer. I haven't sought it from you directly. When you're evaluating courses and deciding which level they'll be categorized at, is there any hard criteria, something that you weigh this against to see that, to prevent, inflated credit rankings, or is there something the colleges do in order to evaluate so that they're comparing apples to apples when they get in reports from various different districts who use different credit scales?
We weigh what we're doing. Most of our weight goes as compared to what these youngsters are expected to learn when they take a freshman course in college. And if when we talk about journalism going from 4.0 to 5.0, we talk to teachers at the universities who teach journalism, and we get their objectives and their goals and the things that they expect these youngsters to learn when they get there. So our 5.0 courses are weighed against what those youngsters will be doing as freshmen in college.
But is there any standardized criteria that's sent out by colleges? No evaluation pieces or anything?
No, all of that is done by school initiative if in fact they choose to talk to the college people.
Okay.
We choose to talk to the college people.
Okay, thank you.
But there is no standard criteria.
There is nothing to...
None that we can find.
So we can find differences all across the different school districts?
Oh, absolutely.
With perhaps using the same, basically, curriculum?
I'm sorry?
Using the same curriculum, you could find different different numbers across the state?
Mrs. Shear,
Or are you going to
you
find
can
them?
find the same course in maybe 5 high schools taught at a different quality. And that's why it's important to talk to colleges and universities, particularly for those college prep courses, to learn if in fact the kids we're preparing are meeting those standards that colleges would expect freshmen to have accomplished by the time they arrive for their freshman year. So, as Dr. Bond said, it's probably the most accurate and most effective way to determine for the college-bound youngster if our course is preparing them for college, since the only other uniform way across this commonwealth and the country is time. And we've got to stop looking at how much time kids spend in class and look at how much they learn.
Well, so the book, you can't judge from that. Two different book, the same book in both districts doesn't mean that you're teaching to the same depth.
Doesn't give this guarantee that the experience is the same.
I just wondered if there was an aid out there, a tool out there to help.
No, but as it relates to the other thing that I should mention relative to School to Work and Tech Prep is that we've been in touch with Penn State and Montgomery County Community College, and we have literally sat at the same table with them and worked out what the objectives and what these youngsters need to learn to be successful in those courses where we're articulating with them. And I tell you, it's exciting to watch college folks and high school folks sit at the same table and decide what it is that youngsters need to learn. And we're doing more and more of that.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Carmen?
Just a comment. Dr. Bond, contrary, has been very humble talking about his role in tech prep. And people must realize that it was he and his staff who really went out and made this program work. It is a credit to us that we have that dedication at that level. And one of the things that, since I was involved in it, and we've talked quite often, is that the ultimate goal of tech prep is not only to have children go into the workplace, but to encourage them to learn so that they will be so happy and so beneficial and so into themselves with self-respect that they will see learning as something that they want to continue on doing. So the ultimate goal is that these children will not only leave the high school and go to the workplace, but will be encouraged to go on to community colleges and to four-year colleges. And you're going to see that the more and more we invest in this kind of program, the more and more we're going to have children who are going to be going to higher education. And that's very exciting for a school district. Thank you, Dr. Bond.
You're welcome. Thank you.
This side? Comments?
Just comment that as you look back at changes since 70s and 80s, you know, when Terry and I were there, many of those students in the general track, without a doubt, we learned as adults, fell through the cracks. So, you know, for Bill's sake, if anything, tech prep has raised the hoop in this district since last 20 years.
I just want to make a comment. This is the way I see tech prep working is I truly believe that there is a gap that exists today between white-collar workers and blue-collar workers. Right. And I believe that the kids that are successful in tech prep will definitely be able to bridge that gap. And I know for a fact that as Dr. Bond alluded to, that Montgomery County Community College, Penn State, the local campus, schools like Lincoln Tech, those schools offer 2-year associate's degrees in subjects such as mechanical engineering technology and electronics technology, things such as that. But kids do need good math skills to get into those courses. And again, even this community, I believe, businesses in this community are yearning for people, or kids coming out to bridge those gaps that I do believe exist today. And I'm excited about it. Any other questions, comments? Okay, we have a motion, a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on.
Thank you. On BA2, we are presenting a recommendation to employ Edward Patty, who worked for us last year as an interim principal, to serve as interim principal at Bridle Path at the rate of $350 a day.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. White. Questions or comments on the motion?
Just a question. Will the contract, will it be reading with a set number of days, or will it be reading with a set period of time through June 30th, for instance?
The number of days will be on the contract, is that how we're...
In other words, we've had contracts in the past where it'll say X number of days through June 30th. That has been what we've been seeing a lot of. Some of them will not, and that way you're deciding, perhaps yourself as the chief administrator of the schools, how many days will fall in up until in the period of time. It may or not be guided through the contract, and that's all.
Mr. Patty is a retired school administrator.
So we will be.
So he will be limited, Mrs. Shear, by the state law.
Okay. So we'll be reading up to whatever days he can provide.
Sometime in January.
Okay. He hasn't been employed for any time during this fiscal period?
I think he has, and I think that limits the number of days.
Okay, and you do have confidence that the amount of days that he is available for employment will fit?
We'll find another person like him to finish the school year.
And we have no maximum time, no guaranteed total dollars other than the $350 a day?
$350 a day to the extent that Pennsylvania law allows him to work.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Questions? Over to this side?
Yeah.
Okay,
Doesn't
Terry?
that make it awfully disruptive?
I don't, I
What are the
think,
benefits of?
well, I think somebody like Mr. Taddy brings experience, doesn't have to learn the job on the job, and has, well, I think maturity
Right.
and all those years' experience provides a kind of wisdom you couldn't find with somebody who's never done the job. So I think, Terry, that overcomes being new to the school. He's not new to our community,
Right,
obviously,
right.
and he's worked for us, I think it was in Montgomery School last year.
Mhm.
So we have an experienced school administrator that doesn't have to learn the ropes on the job
Until January.
until January.
Did I hear that right? And then in January,
Well, he's
when he
limited
gets
by
allowance?
state law to that time.
Will he be spreading his time, though? No, you're not talking then perhaps 4 days on and with...
No,
with-
it'll be
with
every day through the expiration of his allowable time.
Which will expire in January and will be
January.
back here again? Ooh.
And then
Nope,
we
we could do
will
it all
have
year.
found another person experienced and retired to continue through the end of the year.
You can't go home yet, anymore. Substitute.
Okay, any questions, any more questions on this side? Okay, let's call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on.
Thank you. There's a recommendation for your consideration that would permit Christopher King, science teacher at North Penn High School, to apply to be a Fulbright exchange teacher. And this requires your approval because if he is granted the opportunity, he will take a year's leave of absence, and we will employ a teacher from Great Britain to fill his vacancy while he fills a vacancy in the school in Great Britain. That's the nature of the exchange.
Okay, is there a motion?
I so move.
Moved by Mr. Roman.
Second.
Second by Mr. Whites. Questions or comments?
Question. When, with arrangements such as this, who becomes the employer? This leave of absence, is it a paid leave of absence in which we maintain the full salary commitments while they teach in the United Kingdom and in turn take the exchange teacher who's paid whatever their pay scale is from there?
I believe that the compensation level remains the same. So the English teacher who comes here, probably because of the exchange rate, will have a more Spartan life than the U.S. teacher who goes to England. So the compensation doesn't change. The sending school system is responsible for the continuing compensation.
So essentially, we will be paying for an employee who is teaching in the United Kingdom.
Right, and some school
Rather than
district
switching
in
that
the
off.
United Kingdom will be paying for one teaching at North Penn.
Do we have any idea of who the replacement is? Do we know in advance the background and the professional
No, we don't.
quality of those that exchange for our trained and
Well,
fully?
we have that current arrangement right now. We have, I think that it's an Australian teacher teaching in one of our elementary schools. And what we do know is they have to be qualified. They have to meet U.S. and Pennsylvania requirements. And they have, obviously, they're a bona fide teacher in England at this very time.
Bill?
Yeah, I have an objection to the whole program. For all that we go through to hire teachers, to train our teachers, to in-service our teachers, we are now subjecting a certain amount of students to basically an unknown teacher. And it may be great, but it may not. And I'm afraid if we're doing a disservice to 80 to 100 to 120 students, because we don't know what we're getting, we have no control over who we're getting, and I would like to think that I'm sure that we do when we hire anybody here, we put more thought into it than this. So I don't like the idea of having some teacher that we don't know come into the district and teach. So I'm gonna have to vote against it.
Mr. Schmidt, is there criteria set for the quality of teachers from the Fulbright exchange? I would imagine they would have some kind of level of...
No, not that I'm aware of. Certainly our teachers don't have to expose themselves to anything other than they're teaching here. I think there's some relevance to the fact that we don't know until the day they show up what they even look like or what they sound like. And the program is one, I guess, that certainly, because it's a Fulbright type of thing, brings with it some degree of efficacy. But we have no control. I would suspect that, if we could find some valid reason to say no, we could say no. But in the circumstances of the person that's here now, and I understand she's doing a respectable job, we got some paperwork on her, but I've been doing this for 20-some years, and I don't know how you make that judgment on paper that this person's going to really work out well.
Would they do any kind of screening or in order for them to apply? In other words,
Chris is an example, will apply and he'll provide whatever appropriate paperwork they think is necessary. We were not asked to provide any information on the teacher we sent to Australia, and we sent a good one there.
His application is no guarantee that this will even happen.
Right.
There must be some kind of criteria to pick the people who are going to be able to do that. So, that's
competitive.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't think they just picked a name out of a hat.
I think that you hope that in Lenny Campbell's case, and as is true with Chris, these are two excellent teachers, and we would hope that the turnaround that we get would be as appropriate. But being involved with Lenny, there was nothing in terms of our approval, disapproval, and like I said, I guess we could disapprove it, but I don't know what basis we would do that on.
I would prefer that we keep the excellent teacher here that we know.
What kind of legal recourse would he have?
Would Chris have?
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to approve this recommendation. It starts with you're recognized, you don't have to approve it. If you don't approve it, it means that even if Mr. King proceeds to apply, he won't be granted a leave of absence. The Fulbright Scholarship Program was a program established over 20 years ago. It's well established, and over the course of those 20 years, thousands of U.S. teachers have gone abroad to teach, and thousands of foreign teachers who are English proficient have come here to teach. Now, we don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. There's no compelling obligation on your part. It's a courtesy, and it's obviously a significant learning opportunity for both teachers to exchange places, to work in a different culture and to work with children in their trade. But this is not an obligation. You certainly can decline to do it, and that therefore Mr. King would probably not process his application because he wouldn't be granted a leave.
I'm more concerned about our students who are losing a good teacher.
They could be
and getting something that we don't know.
As a
That's my concern.
As a matter of fact, just by your very explanation, what we're doing is it's a teaching experience for the teachers at the expense of the children who is now having a teacher who's learning new concepts of American education.
Well, that may be true, Mrs. Shear, but it's also, it may be a culturally enriching experience for the children who learn the same subject matter, but for somebody from a different culture. But we're not here to argue with you over this. This staff member made a request. We thought it was a reasonable request. It is your decision to make or not to make.
Well, I can appreciate you bringing it to the board.
Let's go over to this side. Any questions over here? Questions or comments?
I think it's a wonderful experience for the teacher going, the teacher coming, the kids receiving, and the kids sending. I think they all benefit, like you said, Dr. Bose, from the culture, the different exchanges, and I'd love to have a different teacher like that, for it to be my year to get a new teacher, a visitor, and Mr. King may be the best we have to send, but we still might get a better one when, when they send one. I think I'm for it.
Okay. Any more questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to call for the vote. All those.
Tom, just for whatever it's worth, as a throw-in to what Terry was just saying about the opportunity to have people from different cultures, we have a number of teachers who now work for us from different cultures that enrich our
And they're new
our
every
staff.
year to the new students.
Okay, let's call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
We better do a roll call.
Three? I heard three. I heard 1, 2, 3. Should I
Roll
do it?
call.
Roll
No,
call.
anyone else object to the count?
Mr. Allen?
No.
Mrs. Leahy?
Yes.
Ms. Mingle?
No.
Mrs. Prokowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Scher?
No.
Mr. Whites?
Yes.
Mr. Clemens?
Yes.
I have 4 voting yes and 3 voting no.
Neglected my name.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Roman.
Sorry, Mr.
I made
Roman.
the motion.
My apologies to you, sir. I am not working from the right page, am I? Mr. Roman,
Yes.
my apologies.
Still have 5.
That makes 5 voting yes and 3 voting no.
Okay, motion carries. Moving on.
Well, now we can deal with an issue perhaps that doesn't cause as much controversy. This is a recommendation for you to approve the award of a contract to Groundwater and Environmental Services, which will provide an analysis of some of our property affected by a former gasoline tank, and provide the report that we're required to produce for the state of Pennsylvania. That's recommended for your approval.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Mingle.
Second.
Second by Mr. Allen. Questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on.
Next recommendation is for your approval of a change order for an continuing asbestos abatement program in the Pendale project.
Moved by Ms. Prokowski. Second by Mr. Whites. Question or comments on the motion?
Just a question, what's the total now? This is change order number 3 for $14,100. How much have we totaled on change orders on this project?
I believe that's on the green sheet, and
Is
it's
it?
in
I
the
didn't-
amount of 25,000,
Catch that.
23,045.
What was the original?
Well, the original contract was, this is from the top of my head, I believe $67,000.
So we're 23,000 over $60,000.
That's right, and in my report to you on expenditures, anticipated expenditures for the completion of the project, I shared with you that I thought we would spend an additional $50,000, of which the 23 is part of that. We're in the most difficult part of the building now, which is the 1931 building, and as we meet tonight, we have some abatement going on over there of some insulation that was in the way of some new heat pipes. Once we're out of the Lansdale High School, we're out of the annex building, we expect this to reduce considerably. And the other thing that I am doing, I'm about to go out and re-quote it, because now that the heating season has begun, abatement is not happening like it typically happens in the non-heating season. So I expect that I can get a less expensive price per linear foot by going out and re-quoting it. So we will re-quote it, and I will come back to you with the understanding that the quotes will take care of anything that is less than $10,000, since they will be sealed quotes, but it will not be an official bid.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on.
Next recommendation is one that requests your approval to accept donations of computer playground and computer equipment at 3 of our elementary schools, the total of which is $11,088.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Allen.
Second.
Second by Mr. Whites. Any questions or comments?
Yeah. How do we express our appreciation for these gifts to the school district? Do we send them a formal letter of thanks?
this results in a letter that will most likely be mailed tomorrow.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
It's part of the process.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
I believe the next recommendation is going to have a forward or an explanation from Mr. White's.
The two sheets of paper that were handed out at the short recess. Under item G, the first item there is the library computer network. There's a bid that we're asking to be accepted. This is, if I'm correct, I believe these are the last of the 3 schools in where computer networks are putting in to automate the libraries and the card catalogs. So this has been an ongoing project for at least, I believe this is the 3rd year. These are the last 3 schools. Every school in the district now has a computer network in the library, which, if I can add an editorial comment, I hope will soon to be unified computer networks so that we can truly begin the kind of networking in this district that will allow us to look at all of our libraries from any of our buildings. So that is the first item. The second item on this list has been postponed. It is a much more extensive bid item. I know the purchasing staff is preparing a letter to the board members explaining this. It's kind of complicated. There is replacement equipment, there are new networks, and for the board's consideration, there is further information coming. So the second item on this list is not for consideration tonight. And finally, the last one, as Dennis has informed me, which is the second sheet, is general music equipment. And Dennis, which one of these was, all of them, I'm sorry, all of them are there. They all represent the lower bidders for these items, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so there are 2 items here for our consideration. The first item, library computer networks and music equipment.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Motion made by Mr. Kowski, seconded by Mrs. Scher. We'll open it up for questions and comments. This side, any questions or comments? No. This side? Oh, I thought there'd be some. Okay, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Next, Mr. President, members of the board, personnel recommendations. The staff is recommending your approval of the employment of 2 professional personnel as noted in the documents before you.
So
A
moved.
motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mengel,
Second.
second by Ms. Perkowski. Okay, we're voting on item 5.
All the way through?
H1A, correct? Okay, any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
And 1B is a recommendation to employ 6 support staff as noted.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kowski, second by Mr. Whites. That goes clear over to where? To page BA4. Okay, any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
The next recommendation, again personnel, is to accept the resignation of 2 support staff.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Allen.
Second.
Second by Mr. Roman. Questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
The next item is a change of status. Somebody has decided to change from a resignation to a retirement, and your former action considered that a resignation, so this makes a correction for our records.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Allen.
Second.
Second by Mr. Whites. Questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
There are 2 salary change recommendations for your approval, which reflect changes in jobs.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Perkowski.
Second.
Second by Mr. White. I just have to make sure, okay, that's bottom of BA4. Okay, any questions or comments?
What is the significance in the change from manager to area supervisor?
Mr. Scher, what we've done this year is institute a big vending program in our secondary buildings. with that comes a great amount of inventory. I've asked Mary Spots to keep control of that inventory. I have her working with the staff here in the building to keep an accurate control so that things don't disappear. So she's doing extra work, so I authorized her to get some extra salary for that extra time she's putting in.
So we're talking a $2,000 increase. The title is really just to indicate that they're now taking inventory of the vending machine
Well,
goods, is that
she's
right?
keeping control of the inventory in four separate locations, the 3 secondary schools and ESC.
Any other questions or comments?
I'm sorry, you're right, Bill, 5
Or
secondary
5.
schools,
Okay.
the high school, the 3 middle, and ESC.
Thought we lost one.
No, so did I after I said that.
The vending machine companies themselves don't monitor?
Well, no, we're getting deliveries from a number of different companies, and what this is doing is keeping control of it. Most of it's at Pendale, some of it's in the other buildings. I wanted to make sure that items weren't disappearing on us, and it worked very well this month.
We're filling machines.
There are
What
machines
kind
now.
of machine?
Right.
We don't have vendors, there are machines.
Fill our own.
Yeah, we don't have one company, Mr. Sherr, we're doing it all ourselves.
There are machines.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
The next recommendation provides for the addition of substitutes for both the professional and support staff.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Roman.
Second.
Second by Mr. White. Questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
BA 10 is an item that requires your approval for salary changes due to preparation level increases.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. Roman. Questions or comments?
This one, Mr. Schmidt, on these prep changes, most of these have all been upgraded for the contract prior to this, right? Our personnel listing that we received in
As-
July were updated to the retroactivity of the
Yes.
contract, right?
Yes, and these are people who have, we change salary levels 3 times during the course of the year, and if they have the appropriate documentation in prior to the end of October, they're eligible for movement at this point in time.
Okay, some of these, a lot of them are ranging $4,000 or $5,000 increases. Would that generally represent like one horizontal movement of 15 credits?
Yes, depending where they are.
And you're saying they could have, this could just be acquired ever since July 1?
No.
Or that they completed
No,
them
no,
as
no.
of July, since then?
Our contract requires people to notify us through the appropriate documentation, i.e. grade reports, or degrees, if they enhance their degree level, by certain dates, which are 3 different times during the course of the year.
Mm-hmm.
The first one being by the end of August, then the changeover would take in September, or by the end of October, then they would be moved on the salary schedule in November after the board meeting, or in April. Actually, the end of March, then they would move in April. The April adjustment is only for half the difference. They move up the full amount on the salary schedule, but they only get half the difference at that time.
Okay, so these $4,000 to $5,000 increases, though, can be from one horizontal movement.
That is absolutely correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Item 10495 is an update on extra duty assignments with additions and deletions to date for your approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. White.
Second.
Second by Mr. Allen. Questions or comments?
Just a question for Fred. Are all of our coaches teachers? Do we have any regular Army?
We have
Can
a
you
number of
say-
people
go
who
ahead.
are not on the professional staff.
How many?
How many? A lot.
Good, Fred.
I honestly don't know that number, but it's a significant number.
Can you provide me that?
Sure.
How many,
Sure.
how many coaches, how many are general citizenry or employees?
I assure you that I will talk with Dr. Bond tomorrow morning and ask him to provide that to you.
I could have made that direct connection
You
myself.
could've.
Mr.
That's
Schmidt,
okay.
Thank you.
Are you just talking about coaches, or are you talking about all the activities?
All activities also. And the chances of board members getting coaching jobs.
It's just in wrestling at the high schools, though.
Thank you.
I'd also like to see that, Dr. Bond, because if you
We'll-
get a copy to
we'll
all board
provide it
members.
to the whole board.
Copy
It's
everybody.
it's a
Thank you.
good bit of information. It's not unique to North Penn. All across this country, there are fewer and fewer teachers willing to take on certain extracurricular assignments. And in many cases, lay people who are not teachers are willing to take those jobs. So our experience is not unique.
You saw an example of that tonight with our golf coach.
Golf coach, that's right. Okay.
See, we wouldn't have known that, and that's a nice special note to make, and if, when we get these sheets, if there could be an asterisk, that would be nice.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Move on.
Student travel, if you wish to move these as one whole unit, you might note that there are 12 separate trips being recommended. Many of them are music-related, many of them are related to kids who will be talented enough to be selected for district, regional, or state competition. They all provide coverage by faculty and where the number is large enough, chaperones. So what your pleasure may be to move them all at once, or certainly to consider them separate.
All at once.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board? I've heard all at once? All at once. Okay, is there a motion?
Second.
Moved by Mr. White, second by Ms. Mengel. Questions or comments?
Yeah, on 6, you've got approximately 4 students, Phil Tackett and Don Klein, Valley Forge, PA, 4 days in April 1995, or should that be 1996?
We're ratifying 96.
Should be 96. Thank you, Mr. Ryan, you do your homework.
Sure does.
Mine says
And
96.
Spoken like an educator.
Oh, here you go.
Okay.
And number 7, is that accurate?
State college.
7 and 8? Keep
That's a
going.
ratification.
Yeah, that's right.
Ratification.
That's a ratification.
Right.
Is that it? Oh, sorry.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes.
Okay,
A
Mr. Sharp?
question, as we read through these and we're reading the approximate costs or substitute days with no additional cost, have we taken into account the transportation costs? When I read 170 Penfield Middle School students are going and there's no cost to the district, no substitute days, does that mean that they're providing their own transportation?
Mr. Sherwood, what we discussed at Cabinet was we're going to ask in the future on the travel sheets that are filled out that there be 2 lines, district or private, so that we can determine whether it's going to be district transportation or private.
But what do we traditionally do? In other words, when we look at
Our practice has been not to include transportation as a cost, even when we've underwritten.
and that would be our bus drivers and our buses, sometimes it's even Haiti or other
Well,
circumstances.
we don't drive to Haiti.
No, Haiti buses.
Excuse me.
You'll become more familiar as time goes on.
Is there no?
Okay, I just wondered, because I know some of the small trips that you just kind of assume where they're going, and if you're talking 176 plus chaperones, I mean, we'd probably have a little caravan there. And I just wondered how we evaluate these. Do we take that into account, or if we see dollars, then that means that's when it's our transportation?
We have not reported that in the past. We will provide that in the future.
Well, when we do that, do they stay, I assume they stay over too, do they not? Do they have to stay, if it's a trip to Hershey, they don't just drive, or New York City, if they're staying for 3 days, they don't just drive back, do they?
Vicki, I don't think that we send our buses to New York City, but certainly in the case of Hershey, that's like about an 8 or 9 hour trip for those drivers. They go, take them, they stay with them, and then
Sure.
come home with them. So that's a big trip. That's a very expensive trip when you go to
We
places
don't,
like that.
we don't send the bus back empty.
No, I didn't think so.
The cost for that might be greater than paying the drivers for the 3 hours they wait.
Right.
And the bus transportation, as Mr. Smith said, to a place like New York City would not include our own buses.
Any other questions on this side? Okay, let's go to this side. Terry?
Can I assume we will maintain proper chaperoning ratios?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
It's up there with condoms, isn't it?
Okay, hearing none, call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
But I am concerned about those trips to Haiti.
You gotta learn where Haggis bus.
I know particularly, I mean, they're friends of ours, come on.
Okay, let's see, we're moving on.
I would bring to your attention, Mr. President, there is a vandalism report.
Okay,
And that brings us to other business. And with the board's permission and reflecting obviously the discussion the board had in executive session when it discussed a personnel matter, I would recommend that the board approve the appointment of Mr. Lou Nyman to be the manager of technology. This is a new position created previously by the Board of Education. And recommendation further provides that his annual salary be $70,000 a year.
Okay, first of all, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. Roman. Open it up for questions, comments from board members.
I missed the discussion.
Any let's start on this side. Questions, comments?
No, looking forward to moving on.
Okay. Questions, comments?
I just have a comment.
Okay.
I'm glad we're hiring somebody to get our computers and software and hardware in organized fashion. We didn't really need it. And I'm very happy we're doing this.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. I just want to make a comment to the audience that this did come up under other business. I do believe this gentleman would just last week indicated that he would be interested in the position. Therefore, it was something that had to come up under other business. We discussed it in an executive session before this, as I mentioned earlier. And again, it's a position for the technology manager at a salary of $70,000. Call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstention, because I missed the discussion.
Okay, one abstention. Okay, thank you. Okay, is there any other business?
I have, Mr. Clemens, I have comments, but I would really prefer to make them not under other business. If I could make them prior to adjournment, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, you're asking to defer right before adjournment.
Please.
Okay.
Mr. Clemens, I'd like a point of personal privilege to read a statement.
Sure.
Since this is my last meeting. In my 4 years on the board, I've seen a school district that had been praised for its excellence deteriorate into a district of divisiveness. What has been one of the most disturbing aspects is the attacks on the employees of this district. They have been belittled and demeaned by board members and members of the community. Therefore, on this, my last meeting, I would like to extend my thanks to all the employees of this district. Long before this board and the previous one, you, with your diligent and hard work, forged our school district into one that was respected and admired by all. In the long run, it will be you, the employees, who will help restore North Penn to its stature of excellence. Thank you for your work. I would also like to extend my thanks to our solicitor, Charles Potash, for his countless years of hard work, loyalty, and professionalism on behalf of North Penn. Although the next board may choose to defeat you, please rest assured that there are those of us in this community and an overwhelming number in the other districts of Montgomery County who know that North Penn will be severely diminished by your absence. Thank you, Charles. To the community, I only ask that you be as vigilant and exercise the same scrutiny of the coming board as you have with this board. And finally, I would like to thank my family, especially my husband and my daughter, for their love, support, and patience. Throughout all the personal attacks, threatening calls, and defaming press coverage, they have stood by me and encouraged me to stick to my convictions and not set out my values. Even when it seems like I was the only voice in the wind, they never once asked me to quit. Instead, they persuaded me to continue because they knew as I knew that the truth must never be buried. My deepest thanks to you. Thank you.
Any other business from on this side?
This is other business?
This is other business, yes. Mr. Sheriff?
No.
Okay. Ms. Nagel?
Yes, I had, like Carmen, I too have some comments I wish to share, and they're more on the lines of saying goodbye to board members that some of whom I came in here with 4 years ago. I'd like to start with Terry. I'd like to say that you've been better than a colleague to me. You've been a sister to me. We've had some lonely days in the beginning, a lot of 7-2 votes, and I thank you for not fleeing then, and I thank you for not fleeing recently. I'll miss you. I love you and your family, and wish you well. Bill, I appreciate your maturity, your calm sensibilities that you brought here to this board, and most of all, your kindness. When you came on board, an overwhelming sense of kindness took over in executive sessions and here at the board, and I think you probably were a leading contributor of that. I would also like to say thank you to Ralph Redcamp, who's not here tonight. I think the media has been most remiss in not doing a better job covering all those things that happened at the VOTEC. Many of the wonderful things happening there have happened due to our being able to secure the employment of Dr. Michael Irwin, but many of those things happened, including his hiring, because of the presidency and leadership Ralph Redcamp showed at the VOTEC. He and I had some terse days here at this district, but we never had one terse day at the VOTEC. And he and I served for 4 years. He did a fine job there, and enjoyed every meeting with Ralph Redcamp at the VOTEC. Carmen, in conclusion, I wish you well with your future plans, your family, and thank you for legislative updates that you have provided over the last 2 years. Thank you.
Is there any other business?
Motion to
Okay. Moving on to item 7, Treasurer's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Clements. For the month of October 1995, we had cash receipts of $5,259,981.78. Receipts year-to-date, $76,058,502.67. Disbursements for the month, $6,794,672.52. Disbursements year-to-date, $33,074,670.51. Our total investments as of October 31st, 1995, $52,694,091.70.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Any questions or comments of Dennis?
I do have a question.
Okay.
And Dennis, it's regarding not the specific numbers there, but as we get our drawdown of our expenditure accounts, to again ask about a report on the closeout of our salary accounts.
Yes.
From the teachers, you know, from now that we had the retroactivity that had to be applied into this part between last year's budget and this year's budget. We had to deal with that,
Yes.
and you were going to provide one in October, but you were out, you
You're
were
right,
unable to make it.
and we will be providing them, Mrs. Shar. Now that the auditors are through, I can finish
Okay.
that report
What
up
I
for
saw
you.
in this month's sheet, and I was trying to get you were at cabinet earlier. I'm finding that we're looking at some deficit balances if the encumbered amounts on salaries come through. Is that, am I reading this correctly as I read through
Well, there will be because of
the encumbered amounts?
Well, because of the additional salaries that were paid, there'll have to be budget if you remember at budget time, the money that was set aside in the budget reserve was done so to transfer that. We added an additional $2.4 million in order to transfer that into the general fund.
I'm showing about $3 million right here that you expect to exceed the amount appropriated in salary accounts.
That I'll have to look into for you. I'll work with Mr. Schmidt on that.
Okay, just as I go through as your negatives here, I'm finding about $3 million in the salaries account, and so that's why I think it's even more relevant to pursue that report on just exactly how much was expended once you were able to take account of the retroactivity.
Fine.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So we know exactly where we'll stand.
Correct.
Okay, any other questions or comments for the treasurer's report? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 8. That should be Dennis also.
Yes, I recommend approval of budget transfers in the amount of $26,559.
Is there a motion?
We didn't take a vote on the last motion, or we weren't questioned.
I don't believe we need to take a vote on that report.
Oh, okay, report. Sorry.
So moved.
Okay. Pardon me?
So moved for this one.
Okay, so moved for item
Second.
8.
Item 8.
Moved by Mr. White, second by Mrs. Scher. Questions or comments on item 8? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on to item 9, I believe it's Dennis again.
I recommend approval of the sanction checks in the amount of $9,279,991.56 and approval of the disbursements for the month of November in the amount of $475,667.91. So moved.
Moved by Mr. Roman,
Second.
second by Ms. Scher. Questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on to item 10. Mr. Kelly again.
This is going to be a good report. I understand last month that there was a little confusion. For the month of October, we had a total income of $379,865.25. Raw food costs of $163,085.23, giving us a gross profit on sales of $216,780.02. Our total operating costs for the month were $134,244.41, giving us a net profit for the month of $82,535.61. What I'm most proud of, however, is our year-to-date, we have a net profit of $28,575.96. I give a lot of credit for that to Mrs. Dorothy Irvin. We worked together. I asked her to look over some of the expenditures. She has done a great job. If you compare, last year is not a good comparison because of the strike, but last year at this time we were in a deficit of 141. But if you go back to October of 1993, there was a deficit at this point of $74,493, and there's a number of things that have added to this. The additional subsidies we've received for the breakfast program, the cost savings that DOT has come up with in some of our salary accounts, and also the increased sales from the students. I'm very proud of the fact that we're showing a profit at this early stage. What I would like to say to the board, though, is what we're trying to do is get food service technologically going. Something as simple as the area supervisors didn't even have calculators. They were using little hand things that they were going blind on. So I provided them with those, and we hope to get a good network computer system so that all our area supervisors have contact with the central office. So I hope to spend some of our fund balance on that. But I'm very happy with this tonight.
Smile, Dottie, you deserve it.
Thank you, Dennis.
That's right.
Any questions or comments from Dennis on the food service report? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 11. Dr. Bose.
No report, Mr. President.
Okay, move on to item 12, solicitor's report.
Yes, I have a report this evening. I'd like to report to the board on November 14th. I issued to the board my opinion regarding the internal board policy that was proposed at the last meeting, which the board requested. On November 16th, 1995, I made the revisions which were subject of the discussions that took place at the November 7th meeting, and that has also been transmitted to the board. On November 16th, I also sent the revisions to the weapons policy in accordance with the discussion of the work session on November 7th. I'd like to make the following statement to the board and to the public. I have a letter here addressed to the North Penn School District. Dear board members, I recognize that there will be new faces on the board and that the political constituency would perhaps desire to have new legal counsel, even though I have the appointment for the balance of the 1995-1996 school year. My firm and I, having served the community for over 35 years, are not going to be a divisive force to the board or to the community. It has been my pleasure to serve the North Penn School Board and the community for the past 35 years. I thank them for their support, and I certainly wish the new board well. I make no apologies for any actions taken by me in my role as solicitor. In my 35 years of service to the school district, I have acted only in the best interest of the people in this school district and the parents and the students it serves. I hereby submit my resignation, effective upon the appointment of a new solicitor. I intend to make the transition an orderly one, cooperative one, and not to leave the district without counsel until your appointment or until my successor is appointed. Thank you.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, move to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Engel, second by Ms. Sheriff. Then all those in favor say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned.